Hey guys, this is Heyde, and welcome to the first part of what's going to be a series of very basic Logic tutorials. This is for people who are going in blind to Logic for the first time and want to get to know the software a little bit as well as the general layout. So let's jump into it. I'm just going to start a new file here. So I go to File up here, New. I'm going to close out of this because I don't need it. Now you'll see immediately a bunch of folders pop up as well as some templates. We're just going to click on Empty Project here. Now this is going to ask how many tracks you want and what type of tracks we want. We're just going to select software instrument for now, and that's going to determine the very first track that pops up. Now, if you have a MIDI keyboard set up and you press some notes, you'll see those notes popping up here. This is what pitch it is, and this is representing what velocity it is. So as I press harder, you'll notice that number is higher. Now over here, you're going to see your time signature. You can change that by double-clicking, typing a new value, or just dragging. Now over here we have the metronome. Press this to highlight it. Now if I press the space bar to play, you're going to hear the metronome, you're going to see it visually here, and you'll see it aligning with our tempo and our time signature. So what we have here, just to reiterate, is the arrange window. The arrange window is kind of our central hub in Logic. It's where we're going to be recording all of our audio or MIDI, and it's where we'll be able to visually see it all stacked down. If I had a bunch of tracks, you'd see them moving down by number. You can see the track numbers here, and they're visually represented across this plane. Just a quick overview of the other windows in here. If we click on Mixer, which the short key is X, you'll be able to see all the tracks, as well as their volumes, as well as the output and master, as well as the inserts, which are like our plugins. So if we wanted to have equalization, compression, echoes, delays, all that stuff is available in here. And to access that, you can just click and you can kind of play and look through all these. We'll talk about these in another video. Here where it says I/O, this stands for your input and output. This is where you're selecting what's coming in, where it's going. For MIDI, our input would be represented by what instruments we're going to choose. So if I were to choose an electric piano, I click stereo, you'll see it pops up here. Okay, now I can change all the settings in here if I wanted to. We won't worry about that now. The output is going to be defaulted to your stereo out. You can change that if you wanted to be buses, which we're going to talk about again in another video. Now, if we go into Sample Editor, you won't see anything yet, and that's because Sample Editor is for audio, not for MIDI. So what I'm going to do really quickly is just drag in an audio file. So now if I double click on this audio file, you'll see that it actually displays in the sample editor. I'm using this to drag it up so I can make it bigger. Over here is another scroll. This is where we can scroll out, zoom out. Okay, now you'll see the audio represented here, and there's a lot of different things we can do inside of this, such as changing the volume of it, fading it in or out, reversing it, changing the pitch. Now, before you go about doing any of this, I will warn you that this is a destructive process. And what that means is anything you do inside of this sample editor is going to be a permanent change to the audio file. So what you'll need to do, and we'll talk about this in another video, is you're going to need to save a copy, drag that copy in, and affect that instead. If you don't do that, anything you do in here is going to be permanently done to the audio, which is usually not what you want. Okay, so that's the sample editor. Now, piano roll. Piano roll is a visual representation of any of the MIDI that we record. So if I record something silly in here, you'll see that popping up here in the piano roll. These are all the MIDI notes. You can see them correlating. If you kind of draw a line over here, you'll see where the note is. Okay, you can drag any of these up or down to change the pitch. You can drag them left and right to change the length of the note. There's also, just like the sample editor, things that you can do for MIDI in here, such as changing the velocity, which is the loudness or softness of it, changing the pitch, reversing the pitch, lots of fun things in here, which we'll talk about later. Our second to last window in here is called score, and that is going to be a notational representation of what we played in. So you'll see here, this doesn't look very good, it doesn't look very proper notation, and that's because I didn't record to a tempo and I didn't quantize. Again, we can talk about this later, but this is a very good way if you don't have Finale or Sibelius to get a notated version. You can actually even export this You can even import notation from Finale and Sibelius into Logic. You can see it in the score editor here, and you can pull them down into all these different tracks, so you could create a mock-up if you wanted to. And our final window in here is the Hyper Editor. Unlike the piano roll, Hyper Editor is showing all of the hidden parameters that we've got in terms of our MIDI. That's things like velocity, again, how loud or soft. If we were to pitch bend, I'll record that so you can see it. You can see this represents the pitch that I just bent. Okay? Pan, modulation, all sorts of other things. So that's a very brief overview of the layout in Logic. If you have questions, let me know in the comments section and I'll address them in the next video. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like, it really helps me out. That's all for now, I'm Zach Heyde, and I'll see you in the next video.